Good morning. Maybe, just maybe I'll leave it up here. Good morning. We have seen this picture before, have we not? All right, so I want to talk to you just a few minutes here. How we go from, and I'm certain that others have asked this question, of how we go from a position of, or into a position of not knowing what normal is or misinterpreting what normal and safe. Because I know that happens. Have you ever heard anybody ever say on any kind of social media, how do I keep choosing the wrong partner? We're going to answer that this morning. And also why it feels so weird to start healing. I've heard that one many times. And a lot gets built around both of these: psychological defenses, neural networks, beliefs, so forth and so on. All right, so this is your typical, what do I want to call this? Diagram of stress and trauma. All right. We'll get into a little bit of this. And this is based on the polyvagal theory. So you can see the three different states here. So down here at the bottom is the green social engagement state. That is equilibrium. And because of my perspective, this is the state of being healed. And you see all the little descriptors down there, and you can read all the little fine print. You can find this online. This is based on the polyvagal theory by Dr. Porges. And the green down there could be very full of stuff, descriptors, because I know what they're like. That's where I live. And then we have the sympathetic. This is fight, flight, stress. Now, there's a difference between fight, flight because I'm being threatened, and the stress we find. I always use the Seattle Seahawks when they lost to the New England Patriots Super Bowl some time ago. And that's what I use. You know, their Seahawks were mere feet away from winning the game. They had one of the best running backs in the business that they were keying on all game long. And so, okay, what happens? Well, they lost the game, but in that last game, in that last call, at the end of the game, it wasn't like they had any other chances. This was it. You know, there was stress. What do I do? How do I not do the wrong thing? All that kind of stuff. The players are feeling it because they need to execute without flaw. Okay, but there is no threat of safety. You either win a game or you lose a game. Either way, you're getting paid millions. Another subject entirely. You go home. All right. That's just it. You have disappointed fans or jubilant fans. That is called eustress, eustress. Much the same physiological response, except without the threat. And that makes a big difference. This is picturing how your brain interprets threat. So, all things being equal, if we move out of social engagement into the fight-flight zone, which this black line here would indicate, that's normal life. Even if you're healed, I still have a stress response. I just know better, far better, what's a threat and what's not a threat. In any event, this is normal life right here. We go up into fight-flight, and then we come down. And I would say, we start from way down here, maybe go up to here, down here, here, so forth, so on. So you're deep in social engagement. You just cross the border into fight flight when you realize this is nothing, and your body then wants to deactivate over there on the right hand side. It wants to deactivate that process because this stress response is very normal. It's designed to keep us alive. If you've survived to this point and you're watching this, probably because your body has a way to get you to do something about a threat, either flee and or fight. That's what your body is looking for. And if you've ever seen the picture of animals being pursued usually more than one shows up of the predator, and that means that the prey is going to move into freeze and then fold and then be dead. Even if it's a one-on-one, if you're outdone, if you're outgunned, if you're outnumbered, outtrained, outskilled, all right, you're going to run right through those from one to the other. In the event, and this video is on my website, which is up over here, and I think you can do that QR code. If anybody wants to try that, I'd be interested to know how it works out for you. But on my website, Raise Your Resilience, I have a video of an impala who got taken down by a single leopard, and that leopard has the cheetah's nose in its mouth. Where do you think it is on this graph? Yep, it's stuck in the fold phase. And in that phase, it's just waiting for the pressure to increase from the jaw, and the body would flood with, that's the theory anyway, since we don't have any way to test that, is that the body floods with all the hormones and painkillers and stuff like that just before death. Not always the case, I think. But anyway, here's how this is normal stress response. When we go into fight or flight because of a threat, you can see some of the emotional stuff that goes on here, on the fight flight, how it is. And there will be not just the physiological, there's the emotional side of that, which is, I believe, enumerated more on the sidebar on the right there. And then you can go into freeze, and people can get stuck in any of these states, because if you're constantly in the sympathetic zone due to, let's say, childhood emotional neglect, whatever, we could add all kinds of things. Just read the ACE score. And if you've got an ACE score, you're probably here. I know I was. And then we get into freeze, and we might live there. You might even, if you read the descriptors, you might find people or think of people who demonstrate that. So what ends up happening is we might end up, this normal down here at the bottom becomes this line here at the top between the red and the blue zone. That's that new squiggly line that runs off to the right. And when we are there, because we don't ever deactivate, our brains rewire. We already know this. This is not new. The brain creates neural networks where the brain fires. This is normal. So if we're living in constant stress because we didn't learn how to, we didn't have our developmental needs met, so we were in constant stress, which means we're trying to survive. That's why this is all autonomic. Yeah, because an infant can't deal with this stuff. This is all autonomic. So our brain wires around the fact that this is normal. So if mom and dad aren't paying attention to me, this is normal. What's wrong with me? Because we assume they're okay. We're not even assuming. This is just how nature works with an infant and then a child. These are our gods. We don't call them caregivers before we even understand what that word means. For all practical intents and purposes, that's God, especially the mom. When we grow up with these understandings and these feelings, these sensations in our body, this is not something that's necessarily understood. This is sensation in the body. That's why Bessel van der Kolk titled his book, The Body Keeps the Score. We end up with a brand new normal. The brain says, oh, this is normal. And we try to play the game then around what this normal is. How do I get this person to love me? That's the kind of energy that we spend doing this kind of thing. This is normal. This is safe. We like to think so anyway, until we're, let's say 8 years of age, maybe 9, and we get sexually molested, and we don't feel safe enough to go home and talk to our parents about it. Why? Because the emotional neglect for that many years already has deadened something inside of us that would say that these people are emotionally capable of responding to this situation. And so they are now viewed as unsafe. I'm still trying to win their love, but they're not safe. What does that leave? That leaves me stuck with my own experience, which I don't have a framework for. That's an ugly place to be, I assure you. So this is the new normal. This is how we interpret safe. And so guess what happens when further relationships come down the road? Yep. Those people that are not safe, we think are safe. Mostly, I would think, because they are on this same squiggly blue line. They have their own issues. They just also happen to be bigger, and that's, stronger. They have a persona that's out here that is what they present to people. But then when you get them alone, entirely different animal. And that's how that becomes, because this constant state of fight, flight, and added freeze in there, when we're in those positions, our nervous system has changed, which includes my neuroception, my proprioception, big words, I know, huh? And interoception, there's a third one. I call them the septions. Neuroception means I cannot read how safe or unsafe somebody else is. I can't do that. As an infant, I never learned how. I never had those developmental needs met. So if I don't have the developmental needs met, I don't learn how to read a real caregiving person's nervous system. I don't learn that. I don't learn to hear the various verbal cues or prosody, as they call it, of safety. I hear indifference. I hear, I don't care. I feel, I don't care. So when somebody else comes along and says, pat you on the back and says, hey, how'd you like to get high? What the hell is that? Smoke this. Okay. Yeah. Now you have this interpretation of what safe is. They're showing you attention. Isn't this cool? Let's go listen to some music. We can do this all night, blah, blah, blah. So the story goes for the next how many years? Until somebody else comes along and says, here, try this. Just snort a bunch of this. Yeah, you'll really feel good. I think you can see where that goes. So anyway, yeah, if you want to have a chat with me, go ahead, email me. It's right there. And we'll do what I just did. We'll have a Zoom call. Bring your coffee. Because no selling involved. I'm here to answer questions. And we'll have some coffee. We'll discuss it. Unless you like tea, bring that. So anyway, we're stuck here in this uppity down thing way up high. That is how the brain interprets normal. So how do you think it's going to feel when somebody says, wow? Or because you're in these positions, how do you think you're going to be as a partner? As an employee? How do you think you're going to feel about yourself? Man, I spent years trying to figure out what the fuck normal was. And I didn't have any success doing that. And I tried all kinds of things to heal myself, including religion, the most common one in America, and another one besides that. And those won't do it. They cannot do it by their nature. The one maybe, and that's not the common one here in the U.S. Because what ends up, anyway, I could go into a different example, but that's not the point here. The point here is when I got introduced to this deactivation process, I was a little, whoa, okay, seems like a little woo-woo. Now, the guy who was running it was teaching me. He's got his doctorate in social work. Is that right? Yes. So he's no fool, and he's no idiot. He's also got, I think, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, he's got 2 master's degrees, one in Middle East languages. I don't remember what the other one is. Might have been a theology. Maybe. And then he's got 6 board certifications relative to his social work and neurology and stuff like that. So the man is well educated. And as he was teaching me this deactivation process, I kept listening for the woo-woo. Really what I heard was his story, which includes war zones and bullets and bombs. And okay, that's understandable. This guy's been in some suck. Got it. In any event, then it was time for him to teach us how to actually do this activation process. And I thought, okay, here comes the woo-woo. And so he showed us these stretches. And in the middle of doing these stretches, I'm thinking, these aren't stretches. I know a yoga class is more challenging than this. This is nothing. But you know what happened? My body began to do something completely new. It started to do an autonomic tremor, which means it's part of my autonomic tremor system. And interestingly enough, 2 things. A, I was like, how do I stop this? Because it wasn't like I was standing there doing this. Anybody can do this. Try it. Just pick your hand up, start shaking it. Now, let me just think of all the muscles that are in here. Try to make your hand do various motions based on those various muscles, all different. Yeah, okay, that's going to be hard to do. And even if you're just doing this, how long do you suppose before your arm gets tired? Yeah, that's the difference between motor control and not motor control, autonomic. Things in your body that are autonomic that you don't have any choice about how they work. Your pH balance, typically your heart rate. Now, the breathing rate I can adjust, and that adjusts my heart rate. That's the one. But there are a million functions in your body that are completely automated because they are there to keep you alive. That's why the ANS exists. And this stress response is in your autonomic nervous system. So the deactivation process, also in that video, is what keeps us alive. And so as I'm doing this, I'm realizing, oh, okay, this is what he meant by autonomic. And B, I can't blame this on anybody else because I'm the one who caused this. And I got uncomfortable a little bit. Frankly, that didn't last long because laying there on the ground, tremoring, I started to fall asleep because having been a firefighter EMT rescue operator for as many years as I was, I began to have a problem with sleep. For that many years, I had some serious sleep deprivation going on. So, and that's one of the marvelous things about tremoring. It is almost, worldwide, if it's anything I've heard that stands out more than any other over the last 2013 to 13 years, is that this was very relaxing. Yeah, it is. Conk. It's been more than once that I actually fell asleep while tremoring in one of my instructor's workshops. Once, in fact, I started to snore. Yeah. In any event, that deactivation process starts to bring you back to a place that perhaps I've never been in before. How do you think that feels? Oh man, that's like, as a kid, you're going over to some grandma or grandpa's or uncle's or aunt's house where you've never been before. Wow. What's this? So this deactivation process just starts. I mean, really, I was with my provider for a year, and I was just starting to get down close to the green zone and realized that I was living without some of this other stuff. Anyway, this should be a moving picture, and it's not. But in any event, then I began to learn what safe really felt like, what normal really feels like, so that when there's things going on politically in this country that I should be angry about, I am. And when there's things I don't need to be angry about, I'm not. That's as simple as that gets. That's normal. When there is a stressor, I should be stressed. That makes sense, right? That's how we survive. When I'm not under threat, I shouldn't be stressed. There's a big difference. And so now I get to rewire what normal is. And of course, that doesn't happen overnight. Where you wire, you begin to fire. So that takes some repetition. And we've all heard that it takes 21 days to start a new habit. Well, that's not true. That they use that evidence based on a bell curve just like this. 21 days on the far left. That was the minimum that it took. The top of the bell curve for that was 66 days. Doing the same thing, same hour, same time. And so I could branch off onto that, but I won't. In any event, then at the top, there were other people who were over 100 days. In any event, that's far right. But we have to continue to do the things that will lead us to practice this deactivation and finally begin to realize that we're moving out of our comfort zone of not being able to know what normal is and not being able to tell what safe is. That's how we recapture this. And you won't do that alone. Hardly at all. That's one of the things I think when it's like saying, okay, are you going to get therapy by yourself? No, that's not going to work, because your comfort zones and all the rest of that have defenses built around them. You will never assail those on your own. You will never see them on your own. That's the benefit of having a provider. Because when you're tremoring, which is the deactivation process, tremoring and some breathing reset, your body will do things if you're not looking for it, and you won't even see it. With my clients, I see this all the time. I see the patterns. When a pattern is interrupted, then I go, did you note? Did you feel that? And sometimes I hear, yep. And sometimes I hear, see what? Feel what? Because they didn't. They weren't. And it's not that they weren't paying attention. It takes time to work into being with your body. That's one of the first disconnects. But in any event, that is what it means to operate in and out of safety, and how we lose that sense of what safe is and what normal is. Because we've been stuck in a neurological state that has emotional limitations, that has physiological implications, cognitive, you name it. And so we think that's normal, and we think that's safe, and it's neither. Anyway, short little primer today. Well, 25 minutes, maybe not short. Have yourselves a great day. I will talk to you. If you have questions, Lecky at raiseyourresilience.com. I'm more than happy to answer them. Maybe we'll jump on a Zoom call if you're good with that. We'll get our coffee and we can just talk. Just talking. No selling. In fact, my boss forbids it. When I'm doing a Zoom chat, no selling. And I like my job. I tend to like my boss. Pretty cool guy. So I listen to him. Just coffee, tea, your smoothie, whatever, or water, and we just talk. I'll answer your questions. That's the point. All right? Have yourselves as good a day as you could have, despite your circumstances. This is the blessing I confer unto you. I mean, the reason I put this picture up in the background here, I'll take this down here. Oh, That backfired. I wanted you to see the background there. And that background is really a beautiful place. And I love being there. I'll do this. Let's try this. All right, you saw that, but if I do that, it kills the audio. Anyway, it's a beautiful place to go and see. This is my office, another place I like a lot. In any event, I wish for you to get a hold of something today that puts a smile on your face. Okay? Bye.